What's up guys, Richie Castellano here again with another Helix video. I want to thank you guys for watching my previous videos, and I really appreciate all the views, the great comments, and the great questions, and I've been doing my best to answer all the questions. I'm getting so many questions about this that I'm thinking maybe I should do like a Q&A. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in seeing something like that, and I'm not sure if I'll do it like pre-recorded or live, but it could be cool either way. But one of the most frequent questions I get is, why aren't you using snapshots? You know you can do that with snapshots. Snapshots. Everybody wants to know about snapshots. Well, you know what? I don't want to use snapshots. But then I thought maybe that's not a good way to be. So maybe I should try to use snapshots. So I read the new revised manual and I checked out some tutorial videos on how to do it. And this is what I came up with for snapshots. And I think they're really cool actually. So I'm glad I took everyone's advice on that. So let's dig in and check out what I'm doing here. Alright, let's start by looking at the presets I used in my first video. And these are my BOC presets, and these work for me just fine. I have a grittier sound. And of course my effects bypasses are all on the top row. My preset recalls are on the bottom row. There's my crunch. And there's my lead. So I get along just fine with this. I love this setup, and I'm going to probably continue to use this just because this is exactly how things work on the HD500. And when I switched from the HD500 to the Helix, my goal was to do this with as little interruption in my workflow as possible. And that's how I did this. But there is a drawback to working like this. Check this out. If I hit a chord here, and I switch, you hear a noticeable gap, like a silence between the switch. It's a little thing. It doesn't drive me nuts. In fact, I've been using this kind of gear for a very long time, digital, signal processing gear, and all of it does this. I've probably been using rigs like this for like 15 years. Well, actually, the modeling stuff is, obviously maybe 3 or 4 years, but I've been using some sort of digital gear for a very long time, and it all does this stuff. So I just got used to it, and now I can, plan accordingly. Like when I do my switches, I know to do it on a rest or whatever. It's just like second nature to me. But I could see how that can drive people crazy. So that's a real plus about using snapshots, is it gets rid of that gap. So let's go to the snapshot rig that I made. Now I found it was best to, instead of trying to duplicate my rig, to just start from scratch and do the snapshot on its own. So first thing you have to do is change this foot switch configuration. So I'm going to go to Global Settings, Foot Switches, and let's go to 8 snapshots. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so here is my snapshot preset. I found in making this preset that, the way I had to think about it was all of this is happening in one preset, and that's how snapshots work. You're doing one big, like, mega rig preset, and you're just changing the state of things within that preset. So you're just turning things on and off. So I kind of imagine, like, if I was going to make a mega touring rig where, space or, like, carding wasn't an issue, and I could just bring anything I wanted with me and have, like, a massive multi-amp rig, what would I have? And I tried to sort of recreate that in the Helix. So I'm going to take you through the different effects I'm using. So I'll show you my signal chain really quick. All right, I'm starting with a studio compressor. Then I have the chrome wah. Now the interesting thing about this is not controlled by the snapshots. This is the only block I have that's just controlled by this expression pedal and the toe switch. I have the Tima distortion. I have the optical tremolo next. Then I have a twin reverb type amp. Not the cabinet, just the amp. Amp and power amp. And then I have the angle meteor. And then going off into its like sort of parallel wet dry own path down here, I have a pitch shifter. And here at the end I have a short simple delay. And then this path gets continued on to here for a little super serial action. And the first thing I have here is my impulse response. And I'm using the Own Hammer Mesa Boogie 412 closed back OSV 77B-06 for those of you who want to try to copy this. I'm using number 7. Sorry, that's my number 7, so it doesn't mean anything to you. Next I have this Mesa style Cali Q graphic equalizer set up in sort of like a smiley face right now. Then I have a chorus. I have the gray flanger. I have a transistor tape delay, a vintage digital delay, a chamber reverb, and a volume, a gain block. So that's my whole setup over here. And I'm going to show you the different states that I programmed in Snapshots. And right now you're just hearing the Helix going directly into Pro Tools, stereo, 1/4 inch out. So here's what I have. Now, instead of thinking about this like I do my normal rig, where I just have presets and I can turn effects on and off, with Snapshots, you hit one button and you don't have to worry about turning effects on and off. So it's actually like having a big pedal rig, but it's preset based. It's like this weird new thing. There's really nothing like this. So here's chorus. Here's my clean chorus sound. Here's my gritty sound. I have a variation on that here. This is my tremolo grit. And the locations here are just where I wanted them to be on the foot switch and what's easier for me to, hit with my toes. Here's my bread and butter crunch sound. Here's that with a flanger. Here's that with more distortion with like another pedal in front of the Here's my lead sound. And now here's a really fun sound called Trevor, and you'll hear why. So those are my snapshots. So basically, the cool thing about this, and check this out. No gap between switching, and that's a big advantage there, especially if it drives you crazy when you hear that DSP gap. So that's how I'm using the snapshots. Now let me talk about programming this. It's stupidly easy. Once you set everything up here and you have your preset, getting the snapshots to work is just ridiculous. The snapshots all show up. You have 8 of them set up on the pedal board if you set up the foot switches the way I showed you before. And all you do is you start with one of them, you scroll to each effect, you bypass what you don't want to use, then you move to the next one, you bypass what you don't want to use, move to the next one, bypass, and repeat the process, and it just keeps saving them to different snapshots. And when you're happy with everything, you save the preset. So that would be enough. That would be powerful enough if you can just, set up a signal chain and just turn, effects on and off depending on like presets. And it's sort of how like pedal board loopers work. Because if you've seen these devices, they'll be like, you'll have all of your pedals looped into this big, digital device that it memorizes what pedals you have on and off for different presets. And that's basically what this is doing. But this is better, and I'll tell you why it's better. Because what you can also do, now check this out. I'm going to go all the way up to my angle meteor block. Now, you notice how some of these parameters have brackets on them. What that means is that these are being changed by the snapshots. Yes, so what you can do is you can change not only if effects are on or off, you can change what state they're in. So if you look here, On my crunch setting, the drive goes from 1.3, and when I hit my lead setting, the drive goes to 7.1. That's very cool. So I didn't have to, burn another block or use up DSP with a separate amp. I'm getting two different sounds from the same amp. That's really cool. And I did that with quite a few different things. As you can see here, I'm doing it with drive, middle, treble, and presence. So to program that, I'll show you this really quick how to do this. This could be complicated, but once I wrapped my head around it, it wasn't that bad. So here I am, and I'll do it like this so you can see how it works. Let me do on the bass. Here's one that I haven't automated yet or controlled yet. So I'm going to hold this down, right? Okay, now it asks me what controller do I want to control the parameter bass with. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to Snapshots. Great. Okay. Now there's a bracket around there. Okay, so now that's all set up and ready to be controlled by Snapshots. So now here on Crunch I have the bass on 5, and now on lead, let's say I want to have it on 5.5. So check it out. When I go back and forth, it changes. It's pretty easy. It gives you an awful lot of flexibility and tons of possibilities of how to route different things. So you can make effectively one preset sound like 8 totally different rigs depending on how you set up each block and the bypasses. One thing that I sort of struggled with that hopefully I can help some people out with is how to name these different snapshots, and that's pretty easy. What you do is you press the preset button once, this little button over here, and you pick what snapshot you want to name. So let's say I want to rename this clean chorus there, and you just click down the rotary recorder that says rename snapshot, and then there you go. And that's how you name all these individually. One more thing worth pointing out is I accidentally stumbled on these shortcuts, these capacitive touch shortcuts. So say for example I want to swap these two. I want this to go there. I just hold both of these out at the same time and ask you if you want to swap. Okay. And I swapped them. Or let's say I want to copy this to that. All you do is you press this, then this. Wait, I did it wrong, sorry. So yeah, you hold this one down, then press that once. Do it one more time so you can see it. Hold this down and press that. There you go, and you get copy. So, okay, and there you go. So it's pretty simple. But let me put this back. Okay. Now, the one thing I want to point out here, I think I'm going to end up using this a lot for the podcast I do. I do a podcast called Band Geek, and we do different cover tunes every week, and I have to get a lot of different sounds. I have to cover the sounds. So you can check it out. We have a YouTube channel. It's Band Geek Podcast on YouTube, and we cover everything from like Yes to the Beatles to the Bee Gees to Dio. We really do everything. So I have to get a lot of sounds, and I was using the HD 500, but I really think that for the podcast I'll be using Snapshots because this really gives me a lot of flexibility. But what is even cooler here is I can also, if I hit mode, I can still have my effect bypasses. So if I want to go bypass effects while I'm using snapshots, I can. Only thing is, the snapshot will remember what you've done. And here's what I mean by that. So let's go to my tremolo grit thing here. So say I'm playing that, and I go over to mode, and I decide, you know what, for now, this sound really isn't working for me. Instead of having tremolo, I'd rather have a flanger. All right? The problem is, when I click off of there, and I go back to tremolo grit, it remembers that I had the flanger there. So you can get into trouble with bypasses, but it's not destructive, because if that really becomes a problem and I'm like so hopelessly lost and I don't remember where any of my snapshots were, it doesn't save them for good. It saves them until you switch presets. So I'm just going to recall this preset again, and now if you see, my tremolo is back. So it's cool because you can't really get into too much trouble, but it gives you the flexibility if you're like feeling something different on a particular gig or in a particular room. Like say for example, like in a certain room, this lead sound, you know, is just too distorted. You know, I can go up to that amp, lower the drive, and then every time I go back to that snapshot, it'll remember what I did last time I was on that snapshot. That's great. And if at the end of the gig I said, you know what, that drive setting was really working better than it's been working, I can go ahead and save that snapshot. Or I can say forget it, because I know that that drive setting is something that's only going to be exclusive to this room or you know, or studio I'm playing in or whatever. So that's really cool and is nice because it works a little, it's a little more familiar to people who use pedal boards, like regular analog stomp box pedal boards, because that's how they work. Like, you know, if you go down, you change a setting on your pedal, and even if you have one of those, you know, preset based digital loopers that, you know, you loop all your pedals into and it remembers which pedals are on and off, you know, if you go and change a knob on one of those pedals, it stays like that. So this is very much like that, and I feel like this would be a very comfortable transition for somebody going from an analog based pedal board to something like this, which is very cool. Another thing I did sort of intentionally here is I put the impulse response and the EQ next to each other, and when I go to when I recall the preset, and this is sort of important to me, it defaults on the impulse response. Here's why. The first set of presets I made in my first Helix video work great for my Axis guitar. Right now I'm playing the Steve Morse Y2D guitar. Those original presets really only sound good with that guitar. This one is a lot more flexible and I can use a bunch of different guitars. So here, let me go here actually, this might sound better. So you hear that? Let's switch guitars. Let's say I want to use a Telecaster. As you can hear, it's out of tune. No, as you can hear, it's a lot brighter, like almost thinner sounding. So I keep the impulse response open so I can, you know, quickly just change the high cut and mess with that until I get the response I want. And if that's not enough, I can go right next door over here to my little EQ and I can mess with this. And again, this is very cool for switching guitars because I can change any of the blocks this way to make it, like say I want more gain on certain snapshots or on certain effects, I can go around and change any of the blocks to match this guitar, and as long as I don't change presets, it'll stay good like that all night or all session or whatever you're doing. And let's switch one more guitar just to show you. Let's go to this guitar. This is a Music Man Luke 3, which I love, but this is a guitar that I find I have to really change all my settings for to get it to sound good. But I'm having a lot of luck with this particular preset because this just automatically sounds good. Like what I might do is just drop this, you know, high boost because this is a pretty bright sounding guitar. So I really find it useful that I can go switch guitars with this and not really have to mess with too much stuff. I didn't really have to go to the global EQ at all. It's pretty great. So I'm really digging Snapshots. I'll probably be using this a lot for the Band Geek podcast and session work I do here, and maybe for jams. I mean, to answer the questions that I had about why I don't use Snapshots with BOC. It's because that's a workflow thing, and I have to keep it that way, and I know how to use everything for which, specific songs. But this is a great, I feel like with this rig, I can really cover a lot of different gigs. And if I look at a set list and something changes on the fly, I can go swap something out or change a snapshot. 8 is plenty. So I think snapshots are pretty cool, and I'm glad I looked into it. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. Please like, and if you haven't, subscribe to my channel. And please comment. I love the comments. I love going back and forth with you guys about this stuff. I'm nerding out on the Helix. I love it, and I can tell that a lot of people are also passionate about this, and they love getting in there and learning different ways to do things. And I'm learning a lot just from the exchanges in the comments. I'm learning new tricks about this every day. So thanks, guys, and see you next time.